What is up, my fellow virgins? Today we about to react to the fighting business. As always, man, every time they drop, we gotta get on this bitch and react to it like a family, like a UFC fan base. You know, it's today's Thursday. We got Friday, 2 more days until Leon Edwards and Kobe Covington. Ian Gary pulled out like a little turkey. He had say, yeah, I got sick, but that's kind of crazy timing and coincidence, ain't it? But we're about to react to when moving up a weight class collapses your career. So, he got Charles Oliveira as the, thumbnail. I don't know why. I don't understand why. That's my favorite fighter, but let's get right into this.
There's a big difference between a 170-pound guy and a 180-pound guy as far
10
as
pounds,
strength.
10 pounds.
It's a big difference in what they can do.
It has to suck when you realize your ceiling in the division and it ain't at the championship level. It doesn't make sense. In sparring, you operate on a different level, but after a long, grueling camp to get into fighting shape, you don't feel as good.
Because you feel like you're dying. You can feel your heart. It kind of hurts. It's pounding.
Jeez,
and your head kind of hurts.
You feel slower and weaker. And when you get pressed up against the cage and the fatigue starts to kick in, you begin to crumble. On paper and as per the numbers, you're the bigger guy in the octagon. And yet this is happening. Why? One bad loss and you contemplate, is this where you'll be stuck forever? You can stay in the role for the rest of your career, or you take a gamble. And that turns out to be the best choice you've ever made. In MMA, especially 170 and below, the weight class you start at might not be the best one for you.
I train with a lot of them high-level welterweights too. It's a different body style. At that point, you're talking about a frame issue.
Young, inexperienced, and yet to hit their physical prime, a lot of fighters calculate their chances of success on the following factors: how much weight they can cut,
Chris, you need to breathe.
how much weight they'll gain after dehydration,
I think he just wants something to drink.
and the last question they ask themselves is probably, will I be one of the biggest, strongest fighters in the division?
One by one, I will take every single one of them out.
Pick the lowest weight class possible, put yourself through hell to make the weight, rehydrate in 24 hours, and manhandle the opponent during the fight. But the taxing fight camp compounded with a horrific weight cut drains you more than you think. Inside the octagon, you feel like a shadow of your old self, nowhere close to what you felt at the beginning of camp. Slow, weak, less endurance, and more susceptible to concussions.
Cutting to 35 is fucking hard. You feel like you're dying. You're laying in bed.
But you kind of are dying.
You 100% are dying.
The fighter, even with a dangerous skill set, simply does not perform at his peak. Lou Bronx is one of the most notable lightweights in recent history. And just to remind you, this destructive force was declared a failed featherweight prospect.
He was, man. I was watching him, and I still believed in him, and he became a champ. Let's get it.
It feels to me like Oliveira allows himself to be a victim of momentum. A weird one in Saskatchewan, and then a tough one with Showtime Pettis. Then he doesn't make the weight.
After a few losses and issues with making weight at 145, Charles moved up to lightweight in 2017 and went on a bloody rampage all the way to gold. He was called a quitter.
He was a guy who was kind of known as a guy who fell apart.
A quitter, a little bit. Yeah.
Someone with a weak will and a brittle chin, but Du Bronx was the guy making people quit at 155. In this new weight class, Charles defied every narrative set out against him and established himself as the most lethal finisher in UFC history.
I will never speak the way that I have spoken about Charles Oliveira
Charles the Bronx! Charles the Bronx!
again. Best I can do for you. I was wrong. I did not know he was that good.
During this run, he faced off against Dustin Poirier, his lightweight title on the line, and Dustin was someone who had gone through the same troubles as Oliveira.
I just woke up. I'm gonna show you why I'm moving to lightweight. I'm in decent shape now, I would say.
The main event of UFC 269 had two former featherweights competing for the big boy belt. Once a featherweight who was largely known for being knocked out by McGregor, Dustin made the jump in weight even before Charles, and he looked like a different beast at 155, more durable and far more confident.
155 is close to my natural weight, so my body just wanted to grow, and I've been holding it back for years, but I feel good. As of right now, I'm a lightweight.
While he was not able to capture the undisputed title at 155 like Charles did, he he was crowned the interim champion, and he established himself as a key player in the division to the point that he was considered for a McGregor rematch.
I think Dustin's going to do a lot better than the first time, but Conor will find the target. That left hand will get the job done.
In the back-to-back matches with Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, less brutalized by the weight cut and more focused, was able to enjoy that left hand over and over again. He defeated McGregor twice, and he remains a top 155-pounder to this day.
I'm about to Shazam this shit, yo. What's this shit called, yo? This shit sound kind of fire.
In the heavier weight classes, 185 and above, the most recent success story is Robert Whittaker. Today, Whittaker is regarded as a middleweight great, a top pound-for-pound fighter, and a former world champion.
A lot of people I've heard would probably say that the best middleweight would probably be either Adesanya or Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, I feel like Whittaker is actually better than Adesanya.
When he fought at 170, his record stood at 11-4. When he was knocked out by Wonderboy at UFC 170, Whittaker said fuck this and moved up to 185, where he would go undefeated for the next 5 years.
It's been completely different. I've been eating a lot more, had a lot more output from my training. So general-wise, I'm a lot happier.
From getting decision by Court McGee to becoming champion against Yoel Romero, Whittaker was nearly peerless at 185 and was only dethroned by Israel Adesanya. Your ability to take damage improves significantly as you adjust to the right weight, but does knockout power carry over? Whittaker had a lot more finishes at 170, but at middleweights, a lot of his fights went to decision. He was almost always fighting top contenders, so that was a factor. But knocking out someone who is close to your weight or even heavier is not as easy, unless your name is Anthony Johnson. This still perplexes me. We've discussed Charles, Dustin, and Whittaker, and they all moved up one weight class, but Rumble, who somehow made 170, went all the way to light heavyweight and retained his power.
How do you get that little? How do you make 170? He was gigantic.
In fact, I think his already vicious knockout power was amplified.
The guy goes up 2 weight classes and is knocking out everybody with one punch at light heavyweight.
Somehow, this beast fought at 170 and made weight somewhat consistently. But as he got older, he started missing weight, and the company forced him to move up to 185. That didn't go too well either, and Rumble was released by the promotion. 170, 185 even was just too much for Anthony Johnson, and so he set his sights on the second heaviest weight class in MMA, and he turned out to be a wrecking ball.
Side of his career, he's fighting 35 pounds up and destroying people.
Rumble was already known and respected as a knockout artist, but at 205, the guy was downright feared. The UFC brought him back after a few years, and he remained at light heavyweight, with only Phil Davis surviving to a decision. Everyone else he won against was knocked out brutally.
Bro, he fucked everybody up except DC.
Yeah.
DC just uses wrestling.
John Jones was out due to personal issues, and Rumble fought DC for the vacant title, becoming the first guy to actually knock down the future double champion. Cormier was the only kryptonite for Anthony Johnson at 205, and if he wasn't around, Rumble would have been the champion, no doubt about it. Interim champions, undisputed champions, pound-for-pound inductees, berserkers, destroyers. These fighters underwent a terrible metamorphosis upon adjusting to their ideal weight and silenced damn near every critic of theirs, and they are still at it today. Of course, there are instances where fighters move up in weights and everything goes terribly wrong, but when it clicks the way that it should, you go from a middle-of-the-pack fighter to championship level. It's all about listening to the people around you, understanding data, and last but not least, betting on yourself.
Facts. Well, that was the video. What we learned today in this video is that, bet on yourself. That's all I can say.